Does it matter which of these three cars wins the test? I say yes and no. I don't think I've ever had such a hard time choosing which of these three test cars I would most like to have. And I love that, because these are three very different characters that do the same thing, and they all do it very well. I would go so far as to say that BMW, Mercedes, and Volvo have never made family cars this good before. Technically advanced, comfortable, and really fun to drive, and with good electric driving characteristics. But when you test cars, you have to assign points in each category. It's not just about opinions and feelings. Now it's time to calculate the economics and test the charging here. We're going to drive and compare, and there will be a winner based on points. But which one? So it's time for the toughest and most important test of the year. Is Volvo the best? Round one is safety. And unfortunately, none of these cars have yet been tested by Euro NCAP. But BMW will be the first to be tested according to Euro NCAP's new tougher standards. Mercedes' little brother, the Salon, is actually one of the safest cars ever tested by Euro NCAP. And Volvo, of course, knows that their core value is safety. What I think these three cars will do is take it one step further. It's the active safety, avoiding accidents with all these camera systems, radar and everything, and fast processors that understand what is about to happen. Avoid accidents. That will be a huge, huge difference compared to older cars. In that area, everyone is at the top. But if you compare with the cars sold in China, at least BMW and Mercedes that will be sold in China, they have LiDAR and maybe even more advanced computers and even better self-driving systems. The Chinese cars are even safer than the European ones. I find that a bit troubling. The fact that Mercedes also charges extra for side airbags in the back seat bothers me too. A nice supercar like this one, as we're driving it now, costs over $1 million. That's not premium. I just can't understand it. For a while, Volvo also charged extra for airbags in the 850. The customer should have the right to choose. Nonsense. A customer who buys a Volvo or this nice Marshall or a BMW should get the absolute safest you can get on the market. Volvo does spice up their offering a bit with the seatbelt, which senses how I'm sitting, how much I weigh, how big I am, and so on, so that it can adjust how it restrains me. Tailored specifically for me. And that's good. We're always talking about a few percent better each time. Not these big leaps forward when it comes to safety, but it keeps getting safer all the time. There has never been a safer Volvo built than this one, and even the battery, which absorbs some of the crash forces, which is part of the entire body structure. So safe cars. I give all three a 4.5 up until now. We'll see what Joran Krupp has to say, but it's going to get even better in the future. Normally, RON2 is reliable in terms of quality, but it's very difficult to find information that can distinguish these cars from each other. Instead, I'm splitting this RON into driving and loading. So one is about what it's like to drive the car, and the other is about what it's like to load the car. But BMW has had problems with the onboard charger, and the car can become electrically charged. So they've had to park finished cars, and unfortunately, deliveries have been delayed. Volvo has had problems with the mega casting, so it has become a bottleneck to produce enough parts for the rear axle. So production there has quickly stalled. Mercedes, on the other hand, doesn't seem to have suffered any major delays, but in order to sell the cars in Germany, they have had to offer heavy discounts to corporate customers. At the same time, you can also see that sales of the plug-in hybrid GLC, which has been a very big deal, have plummeted. That's high-level cannibalism, and I think it's happening in Sweden as well. The XC60 has lost a huge amount of ground in Sweden, especially among corporate customers. There, it's been the case that they don't want an XC60. Private buyers, on the other hand, continue with the XC60 because it's cheaper. But is it really more profitable? Is it actually more economical to drive an XC60? Round 2 is the important electric car round. Range and charging, we'll get right to it. BMW has the largest available capacity at the moment, 109 kilowatt hours compared to 96 kilowatt hours in the Mercedes and only 91 kilowatt hours in the Volvo. 18 kilowatt hours extra without it being more expensive than the other cars. According to the WLTP standard, when you fully charge the car at home and are ready to go, that means 800 kilometers in the BMW, 650 in the Mercedes, and 660 in the Volvo. But that's just in theory. So you get 130 to 140 kilometers extra for free in the BMW. But we have measured the car's consumption at 110 kilometers per hour, and we have charged them. So you'll find out exactly how it really is. When it comes to charging, BMW has the highest maximum output, stated at 400 kilowatts compared to Volvo's 370. And Mercedes 330. This is at a time when the Chinese are coming out with over 1,000 kilowatts. So mega charging. However, Volvo can boast the fastest 10 to 80% charging time, 16 minutes compared to 21 and 22 minutes for the Germans. As for consumption, it's 15.1 according to WLTP for BMW, 16.2 for Volvo, and 16.8 was the figure I found for Mercedes. There are other figures as well. It's a bit confusing here. It depends a lot on which specifications you have, which tires you have, and everything else. But we'll go with the basic numbers here. I'm going to give two partial scores in this round. First, how far you can get from home if you start with a full battery, and how many extra miles you actually get when you stop and do a 10 to 80% charging stop. We've driven these cars at 110 kilometers per hour on the highway to get a comparable consumption. I think that's about how these cars are mostly used for long distance travel. But what about charging time then? Some of you might be wondering that. Absolutely, it's important, but as it will turn out, it's actually not nearly as important as you might think. And I'm also going to deduct a few points for some of the cars, for something that's not so good when it comes to charging specifically. And we have Tesla, all the cars at the same station where I can display the curves and all the data here. So you can take a look at them. We arrived at the station with preheated batteries after our highway drive and the consumption on the highway. 18.8 for BMW, 18.9 for Volvo. Interestingly, Mercedes is the most efficient at 17.8. In this specification that we're driving, it weighs over 2.16 tons, so it's definitely the heaviest. But it's probably the two-speed gearbox that makes the Mercedes the most efficient. It can run at lower RPMs on the highway. So with these fairly similar consumption figures, it's really the battery size that makes all the difference. When you start from zero and drive down to the castle where you can arrive with the cars, the BMW actually manages 580 kilometers compared to 520 kilometers in the Mercedes, and only 480 kilometers in the Volvo, so that's a difference of 100 kilometers with fully charged batteries. That's quite a lot actually, I think. But what about charging? That's where Volvo comes back into play. If we arrive at the charging station with 10% and charge up to 80%, Volvo manages that maneuver in 16 minutes in our test. 21 and 22 minutes for the Germans. They all deliver, actually, all of them deliver what they promised in the charging test. That's good. After 80%, the BMW has received 83 kilowatt hours, compared to 76 kilowatt hours in the Mercedes and only 67 kilowatt hours in the Volvo. The fast-charging Volvo takes in the least amount of energy, partly because it also has the smallest battery. This means you can go 960 kilometers with the BMW, almost 1,000 kilometers with just one charging stop, for real. 890 kilometers with the Mercedes, and only 780 kilometers with the Volvo. That's a real range difference of 180 kilometers if you start with a full battery in the BMW. Now, that's a stop at... I think that could be the difference between having range anxiety or not. I would say that's a huge advantage with the BMW if you often drive long distances. I give BMW 5 points, both for range and for range charging. Mercedes gets 4 points in both rounds, and Volvo only 3.5 and actually 3. Range and charging are not nearly as good as one would hope, but the round doesn't end there. Then, in fact, you need an option for 6 and 9 if you want to be able to charge at 400-volt stations. Sometimes you might want that, at least the safety is there. You want that, and it doesn't have vehicle to load. That deducts half a point for Mercedes because of that, but you could deduct more if you want. It's up to you. Overall, BMW now takes a clear lead here. Now it's up to Volvo to catch up in the other rounds. Round 3, it's about space and loading and seating. Let's check out all 3 cars. Back seats, luggage compartments, and frunks to crown a winner. Here we are with the BMW, which you could say is kind of in the middle. 540 liters of maximum space here. The length is about 190 centimeters. Maximum loading height is 70 centimeters, and the width is about 94 centimeters. And what does it look like under here? Here we can fit the charging cable and a few other things, but it's not nearly as deep as in the other cars. It's kind of strange that BMW hasn't managed to make the car even better in this regard. And it also has the worst. The towing capacity is only 2 tons. Now let's quickly take a look at the frunk. A plastic cover here. BMW says it's 58 liters here, but if you remove that, it's not big. Say what you will about the Nord class, but they really haven't managed to optimize the space like Tesla or some of the other cars we'll look at later. But it actually has the highest maximum payload. The weight is 540 kilograms. Mercedes has very cleverly put its rear view camera in there, and you can open it there as well. Nice. And the space is the largest, 570 liters. Also a split rear seat in 3 parts. A slightly flatter surface too compared to the BMW. Let's see if it's just as long. 1.85, so not quite as long, but it's more square shaped. The width here is 108. 69, a larger space here. You can probably actually lower this one a bit, then it becomes 76. And then there's a net here and stuff, and you can fold out the tow hook. And as always, Mercedes has good features. You just press a little nicely there and it opens. Very good. And then a handle there and here, 128 liters. It's actually hard to see such a big difference between the different cars when it comes to packaging. And this one can also tow 2.4 tons. It has the lowest maximum payload, 504 kilograms, I think. No doubt about it, if you want to bring a lot of stuff, the Merc is the most spacious. Volvo's design is a bit different than it used to be. I'm getting Cadillac vibes here. The clean, crisp design language. It's definitely the boxiest of the cars, and that's actually good because Volvo has always been boxy. In some way, they've brought back the design from before, 5.85 liters, very square and good. And I really like these 3 split rear seats. So you can really vary things. And 190, so that's good. And here, the loading width, 104. That was good, probably the largest today. 69, 70, let's say a height of 70. What's really fun about the space back here, this can be split of the compartment, which is a bit Tesla-like. Here, for example, Volvo has included a bucket that you can use for crabs, if you can see it there at the very bottom. There you go. And you can also buy different interior fittings for a cargo net. Very good. Charge. But this space is good. It's a flexibility that I think people will really appreciate. A big difference compared to the others, actually. They've done a good job, even though it's a bit smaller than in the Versa. When you want to open the frunk, there's a little reminder here. This little arrow on the iron badge, that's where the latch is. So just lift that up. Good. Here, 52 liters. It actually looks bigger than in the BMW, but it's packed a bit differently. You can keep things like this here. This is fun. Volvo is a bit playful like that. They have things like this. You're supposed to place the warning triangle 100 meters from the car if you have a problem. There are a lot of these little... In the trunk, you can see what dimensions will fit. I like this playfulness. But as I said, it could have been bigger, or Mercedes did a better job. Welcome to the luxury car, the Mercedes. This is supposed to be the luxury car. It is in many ways, but actually not in the back seat here. You can't recline the back seats any further. You'd think there would be cup holders here. There's only a small phone holder here. Strange. You can't adjust the heat just where the air blows. There are 2 USB-C ports here. It's just a bit sparse, really. On the other hand, the space is good. I've got plenty of room for my feet. I get good thigh support. Lots of space. I'm 1.80 meters tall and have all the headroom I could want up here. Almost 2/5 of space up to the nice roof as well, which is, that dims itself, which you can adjust. So you can let in a lot or a little light. It's really nice. And I was actually wrong. You can actually find a cup holder here. You just have to double stack a little bit. So it's nice that, good, so there's space there. But if you try to double up, then it won't fit. And you can't just yank it out, you have to press it in gently and then pull it out. So yes, it was there. And actually a plus here for Mercedes. The only car that has real handles back here. I think everyone should invest in that. It's quite comfortable. You sit and ride or stretch out or get in and out and so on. So it's a bit strange. It can't cost that much to make a handle. I think all cars used to have that back in the day. Welcome to Volvo's lounge world. Elegant, nice, but a bit like the newly renovated waiting room at the county hospital, in my opinion. A little too easy to brush crumbs off, a little too sparse for my taste. But it's good that there's such a big difference between the cars, really emotionally and design-wise and so on. But now we're talking about the back seats. And here Volvo has a lot of things going for it. For one, you can adjust the heat back here and you can turn on the electric rear seat. There's USB-C, and here we have cup holders. Ta-da! And we can also roll down the window. Works well, nice. You can do that in many cars, but we can also recline the backrest up and down, which the Mercedes can't. And on long trips, that's really comfortable. And the seat cushion is a bit softer, I have to say. So I'm sitting a bit more comfortably than in the Mercedes. Just as much space out to these two fists, and that's a lot, but there's even more room for your feet. So all in all, I would say that Volvo has a better back seat than Mercedes. It's dark and nice here in the BMW, and they're all very similar. Here you can adjust the backrest, but you have to do it manually. So there are two different positions. Luxurious in the Volvo, it's here. Cup holders, and here you can also adjust. The temperature is quite nice. Here we have a holder for a tablet, a bit of entertainment, or maybe a clothes hanger. There you go. But they all have a good back seat. That's how it is with these new electric cars with lots of wheelbase. So you can make them very, very spacious. And since they're SUVs, the floor doesn't get raised that much. So you don't get that many electric sedans. It's not just low electric cars, but here you also get good lower back support. Room for your feet here. 2 spots for your knuckles there as well. It's very tight, which makes it the best back seat. I would say that Volvo feels the softest and coziest to sit on. Maybe a little better support, but it's tight. I would say that Volvo is just barely ahead of BMW and Mercedes in the end. You can't recline the backrest. I love that this car really tries to feel luxurious, premium, and a bit more inviting. This car has a hyperscreen that's included in a package for 128,000 kroner, should you buy such a nice Merc. I think you have to load it up with a lot of equipment, otherwise it doesn't feel the way it's supposed to. This pinstriped gangster-like style. This car is the most blingy you can choose. A lot of different colors there. You can choose seats and materials. You can configure this car much more than the Volvo. It's really quite fun. And the steering wheel, in terms of its overall look and aesthetic, I think it feels the most classic, with physical, tactile scroll controls right there and so on. Regeneration buttons there. And these are actually metal now, not like in the C-Class. They've stepped it up, the quality level quite a bit, but it's still a bit empty and this rattles a little. They mix and match with different plastics. And further down it gets scratchy. So it's not the old days, really nice, solid Mercedes. But I think you either like or you either hate or love this big screen that you can play around with. And here, there's one for the passenger who can do things as well for themselves, and also adjustment options. It's not so high tech, but everything is there and you can mess around with it. And a screen here when we turn it on, and a head-up display. Everything is there. There's massage in the seat. It's just a bit plush, simply put. I like sitting in this car because it feels luxurious. And that's exactly where it should be, actually. The interior is very cozy, and you can also adjust this headrest. So you do this if you want more support, or you get less support. It's a completely different feeling to sit in the BMW here. Much more futuristic, much more avant-garde. This strange screen that's slanted. And here at the very end, just like that. All the way over here, there are quick selections, so you can just sit like this and do that. Then, of course, there's this panoramic iDrive. So it's a head-up display that runs across the entire front windshield. You might think it would block your view, that you can't see the road properly, but it's actually positioned quite low, so I think it works really well. And it adds something extra. Here you can set the map, maps, trip, and a bit of driving info. You can choose what you want to have displayed, configure it, and throw up an air quality widget there, or whatever else you want to have. You'd probably want to have the gas payment mode. You can play around with this as much as you want. The steering wheel is perhaps one of today's new modern cars, or the ugliest steering wheel among all modern cars, in my opinion. But the grip is good, whether you drive like this or like that. So the functionality is really good. And here you can control the self-driving or the driving mode there, which also works very well, up and down with the volume and everything else. So the functionality is really good. However, I think this plastic here feels pretty cheap to the touch, or slippery and so on. Ergonomically, it's super good, but visually, in my taste, not at all as good. What else do I have to say about the interior? Nice seats, that's actually the case in all of these cars. And there are lots of settings. It's almost like you start wondering, how do I get to the next thing, and where did I end up? Just like in the other cars, there are different sport modes and so on. But here, we actually don't have drive modes down here, which I think they really should have. Well, let's see if we can find parking assistance and everything. And here too, you can get different sounds when you're driving. Driving, chassis drivetrain. You could play around with this forever, but we don't need to do that. Then we come to, for example, the apps, where you can go in and check the driving data and see how much the car has consumed and what has consumed it. 72%. The motors and the climate is 19.5%. That's pretty interesting if you're into this kind of nerdy stuff. And I think you probably are if you drive a BMW. I'm sitting comfortably. The car feels spacious enough and nice. You have good control. If you like a bit of high tech, this is a lot more fun. If you like luxury, then the Merc is definitely better. It's good that they're really sticking to the core values of the brands. Sport luxury. Now let's see what Volvo is all about. And here we have the in-between option. No, it's not an in-between. It's all the way out on the edge. We have luxury, Mercedes, and sport here. And here we have some kind of high culture. It's minimalist, very Scandinavian, you could say. I don't know if that's right, because I don't feel that the sense of quality here is so high that I can just sit down and think, yes, this is craftsmanship. This one, for example, you don't have room for a regular glove compartment here. So it's here in the middle where you have to keep your things like this in here. Now, it doesn't feel expensive or fancy. The only thing that's a bit fun is probably this crystal here, maybe. There's nothing seriously wrong with this. The fabric here or the wood here, but I don't get any luxury craftsmanship vibes here. And you can say whatever you want about that steering wheel. I think it's kind of cute, square shaped. It feels a bit like a toy car in a way. But you could also say it's a bit elegant. So it's a mix. Aesthetically, I think it's better looking than the Mercedes and especially the BMW. Here I've noticed how the Volvo logo stands out. That's something they've actually splurged on here. The Volvo logo was kind of nice. I think that's good, but it's pretty minimalistic. Very minimalistic, and that goes for here as well. It's not luxurious. The seats, on the other hand, I think they've improved. Volvo's seats had been a bit too firm before. But these seats feel soft, and you can adjust the thigh support as you should. That's nice. Then there's this curved screen, which I think is just the right size. And it has a simple layout. Here you can have quick selections, for example, different suspension settings. With this P10, you can set the suspension to different modes. We can go into driving settings. I think this one is the easiest to work with. Here we get to the apps. It works well. And when Volvo comes with extra, you absolutely don't need any instrumentation in front of the steering wheel. You really don't. But apparently you do need it. because this car has it. But they've placed it very far forward because they say you don't need a head-up display. And you could agree with that too. Yeah, sure, this works. Here, for example, we get the map. But if you're out driving and have a good head-up display, like in the other two cars, you get even better guidance because this one is quite small. I definitely prefer a good head-up display over this screen, but of course that's a matter of personal taste. The stereo is really good and it feels bright and fresh. You have to give Volvo credit for that, I think. And it has a little Swedish flag. In this case, it feels more relevant than in many other Volvo cars. This car has been developed and designed very much in Sweden and is produced in Sweden. So this is probably the most Swedish Volvo in a very, very long time. And I think that's fun. And this interior, I would actually go for the wool interior, which feels even more special and maybe not as sweat-inducing as this one. And here it's easy to get started too. Just drive the start button there. Yeah, but it's easy to handle, I think. The easiest controls to work with, in my opinion. It's a matter of taste, and you get used to all the cars after a while. It just takes a little while. Volvo also has Google, which usually works really well. However, this car has a demo version. This car doesn't have all the functionalities activated, which might indicate that they're still working on making everything bug-free. I really hope they manage to do that. And then it also has AS Dent, which will get even better in the future, so you'll be able to talk more and a bit more like a good chat, not like some chat that just says on the internet or la la la, we found this on this website. Instead, you'll be able to have a proper conversation, and I think people will really appreciate that as it develops even further. You might even be able to say, oh, hey, this field up ahead, what kind of crop is growing here? If you use the car's camera, the car looks at what I see and can then answer my questions. That's really smart. Volvo has these quirky handles, these little wings that stick up here, and they need electricity to function. But they say they should work very well in winter. But if the car is completely dead and has no power at all for some major reason, so there are redundancy systems, there are dual systems, so that shouldn't happen. This one is, it needs power to be opened, so they need to redesign them to be approved in China. But this car apparently won't be sold in China, unfortunately, but it's a nice design. BMW has something similar on their new X series. I think they'll also change the X3 to have these stylish wing handles. I like the side mirror. Without a frame, it's really good looking, and it's quite big and nice. Let's take a look at the Mercedes. Here you have cameras and everything as it should be, but if we compare it to the Mercedes, it's a bit smaller, probably due to ergonomics. I also don't think it's nearly as elegant to look at. These handles feel pretty much like yesterday's news too, don't they? I'm looking forward to when even Mercedes and everyone else get regular handles. This is just weird. The design on the Volvo, it's the Thor's hammers that have gotten slightly accentuated lights. They like these, the lights here are also nice, but somewhere along the way, I think they've lost their way, in my personal opinion. My personal opinion is that this badge is just stuck on the plastic body. They haven't really figured out what it is. What is the emblem even doing there? There's an air intake that you can adjust and mess with. Why not put it up there and have the emblem in the grille? I think an XC60 or XC90 looks much better. That's my opinion. Perfect. I think this one ends up being a bit anonymous. The other two Germans in the test have taken a completely different approach when it comes to their grills. Mercedes has gone back and adopted their classical design, and they're really indulging in a huge illuminated grille. So here, you definitely can't mistake which brand is behind it, whether it's better looking or not. I think it feels more powerful and makes more of a statement, more classic, but that's a matter of taste. And now let's take a look at the BMW as well. It's also really obvious that you're driving a BMW. They have their classic kidney grills, which are very upright on the new i3. On the 3 Series, they're much more horizontal. But I think it works. It might not be the most stylish, but there's a lot of character in this front as well. I also think the headlights look great. It feels like a BMW. The same goes for the match, but I wonder if a Volvo really should look like that, like a Volvo. I don't think so.
Hello and welcome to Snillen Spekulera. Today, Hannah, the episode is about design, and everyone has chosen a different design.
Everyone has different opinions about form, so I thought you could join in and say what you liked about the design of these three cars.
Tastes differ.
Yes, tastes differ. And they all have very different characters, but which one has done it best?
The BMW is definitely the boldest and most striking. Just look at the height of this hood. What presence, really? We're talking hip height, and here we have a completely different appearance. It almost looks like the Volvo is a size smaller car, I think, with this front. And here it feels very old school, classic, a gasoline car face.
With the other two, you can tell they're modern, a bit of that electric car vibe, but the Mercedes doesn't speak electric car at all.
No, it's doing something else. But then it doesn't feel like they've tried as much. You know, do you remember the EQS, the Tapir? The Tapir? Yeah, but what do you call
that? Yeah?
Absolutely. Here, there's something is happening. And I think the car looks much better in real life than it did in the first pictures. I agree about the Volvo. Not much is happening there. It feels plasticky. But
another thing too, just before we move on, these sculpted hoods with these bulges.
When you're sitting behind the mast, it also feels cozy. You get a real car feeling from this steering wheel when you look at it and drive.
And this?
Not so much of a fridge feeling. No, but it's not that smart.
I mean, it's touch.
That's also a win, actually.
Yeah, that is definitely true as well.
This one, not so much.
It feels plasticky.
It feels plastic. It looks plastic.
It just feels lost and shy.
But also very, very kind.
Very
kind-hearted.
Harmless.
This is probably the word.
I think there's something non-binary about the whole car.
Is it possible?
You say that?
Yes.
This one stands its ground. This one knows what it wants.
Yes.
And it's not shy.
No, that is not correct.
Which one is best?
In terms of design, I think this one is absolutely the icon among these three cars. I think the design will last the longest, and it's the clearest and most forward-looking.
I agree. That one has character and DNA?
Yes, I agree. Just look at an early electric car like the BMW i3. It still looks modern even today, almost 10 years later. I also believe that we have, here it is.
The winner. The winner. Tastes differ, or maybe we all have the same taste after all. That's how it is. What do you think? What
does our camera woman Tassan think?
If I get to join in, then I agree as well. What do you say? The BMW. What? It's a bit cooler, a bit edgier, a bit tougher. A bit cooler, yes.
There are many who say it's really ugly too. Yes.
But I think people just aren't used to the BMW grille itself. That it's such a new grille compared to the old ones.
This round goes to Mercedes, which is the biggest car and has the most cargo space. However, I would say that Volvo has, in my opinion, the best back seat. The differences aren't huge, but if you need to bring a lot of stuff, the Merc wins. So these three fine electric cars beat the plug-in hybrids. Without revealing which of these three I think is the most enjoyable to own, I'll talk about how private leasing compares. A quick comparison with a well-equipped XC60 Ultra. If you buy it, it costs 13,700 kroner per month. But private leasing an XC60 is better. So that means don't buy an XC60 and don't buy a BMW X3 plug-in hybrid either. Private leasing a plug-in hybrid is cheaper, but buying a plug-in hybrid is more expensive than private leasing those electric cars. That's how complicated it is, but that's actually how it is. Round 4, driving and riding in them. Which car do you start with, if not BMW? The car that has to deliver when it comes to driving. I've driven it many times before. Damn, it's nice to drive. Above all, it's the steering that's completely superior in this group. There's a steering feel, there's grip in the front end. The whole car just moves exactly where you want it to go. It's inspiring, and it also has a chassis that never lets you down, I can tell you that. It feels stable. It's one of the cars that doesn't have adaptive suspension. We have the Volvo in this P10 version, and the Mercedes even has air suspension and rear wheel steering, but this one is the most basic of all the cars. And even with all of that in mind, it's still set up remarkably stiff, which unfortunately means the overall comfort isn't, well, it noticeably doesn't quite measure up to the others in this group, especially not the Volvo. It gets a 5 for steering. It also actually gets a 5 for self-driving, which is absolutely the best. None of these cars have yet received this Level 2++ version that's coming. But this one is so good that it's almost hard to get used to being without, even with the current version. It brakes, it keeps its distance, it handles roundabouts, and if you're driving on a winding road, it can brake. It doesn't interfere or decide how I should drive. When I take over the driving myself, it lets me do that. So you can move in and out of this lane keeping assistant seamlessly, so it's exceptionally good. The suspension gets a 4, which is very good considering how basic it is. Noise level. It has an active noise reduction system that removes some of the road noise at lower speeds. But when you pick up speed, road noise starts to become noticeable. There is some wind noise and so on. So it only gets 3.5 when it comes to noise level. However, if we put everything together, acceleration, chassis, steering, and come up with a driving enjoyment score, it becomes a 4.5 for this car. It actually feels a bit wider. Heavier for some reason than the Volvo, which feels lighter on the road. Time to drive and ride in the Mercedes. A completely different animal, actually. You sit in a different way. You see this undulating hood. You can feel in this mode we've set now how it rumbles. Also acoustically, you can activate that in the BMW as well. But you also hear it in your back. A speaker in your back. Here, it's mostly about thrills. This car is the heaviest of the three, and you can feel that too. And as mentioned, it has air suspension and rear wheel steering. I'm only giving this car a 3 for noise. It doesn't do very well at higher speeds either. Then we have the suspension, and this car has air suspension, and that's both good and bad. You might think that air suspension is always good. Raise and lower the car. It can handle much, much more suspension movement. Stiffen it up and so on. You can set this one to both a soft and a sporty mode. If you put it in the sporty mode, then it becomes a bit tougher than the BMW, which we can't really adjust anything on. And in the soft mode, it gets a bit seasick. It sways a little afterwards. No, the suspension. Only gets a 3 from me as well. It's very strange. Both the suspension and the noise level should be much better. It really should be much better. But on the other hand, it surprises with being the fastest to 100 and having the most drama when you take off. It gives you butterflies in your stomach and is a bit of fun. That's also because it has a lot of torque in the motors. And you can drive it fast even though it doesn't feel focused. It doesn't feel very focused on the road. It doesn't have the same steering as the BMW. It's a bit more, it sways and rocks and moves around. But it's fun in a way that the other cars don't have. So it's a bit more dramatic to drive this car. We're talking about the suspension not being that good or the noise level being high. I'm being very tough now. I'm setting very, very high demands on what the car should deliver. Because if you compare it to anything else, this is fantastically good. But Mercedes can do better, should be able to do better. The steering gets a 4, which I think is pretty good for this car. Driving comfort only gets a score of 3.5. It's not nearly as good as Volvo and definitely not as good as BMW. Driving pleasure, score 4. You might think I was tough on Mercedes and only gave its nice air suspension 3 points. But that's because I think it's so unrefined. In the soft setting, it rocks up and down quite a lot. In the firm setting, it still rocks, even though the suspension is stiffer than BMW's, which is always about the same. It's uncontrolled. Honestly, I wouldn't pay an extra 32,000 SEK for air suspension and rear wheel steering on the Mercedes. I think the standard suspension is really good. Mercedes are good at suspension, there's no doubt about that. But if you like it when the car gently rocks a bit on the highway, you get a slightly plush feeling, and I can absolutely appreciate that too. You could give the suspension 5 points if you like that kind of ride. But that won't mean that the final result in this test will change. It's just a few small points on the margin, but it doesn't mean much more than that. But absolutely, you can give the Merc 5 points for suspension if you like a rocking ride. Time to drive the Volvo. It's just so relaxed and so cozy. Right away, when you sit down in it and roll off that first meter, you feel that this is something different. It's so quiet. It also has noise cancelling, but something has been done differently compared to the BMW. This one rolls so smoothly. This one actually has 22-inch wheels. The others have 21-inch wheels. So that's not the thing either. They've done an amazing job when it comes to chassis tuning, I have to say. The quietest car without any doubt whatsoever. It gets a 5 for noise level. And the suspension, this P10 has adaptive dampers. And they work fantastically. You can set them to normal, sport, or comfort. There aren't huge differences. Of course, there are differences. But no matter how you set it up, this car is without a doubt the most comfortable to ride in, both for your body and your ears. It also gets a 5 in the scorecard when it comes to comfort. However, this steering wheel feels a bit silly, you might think. And the steering feel, it's easy to place the car if you want to. The car feels pretty light and nice. But when it comes to sharp, precise steering and feedback from the road, not at all on BMW's level. I'm really looking forward to when Polestar gets their hands on this technology package, this SPA 3 platform, and to do some fine-tuning of the steering and also the chassis. But the chassis is good. But above all, the steering. A Polestar version like this will be an incredibly nice driver's car. A Polestar version like this, there's nothing wrong with the performance. 510 horsepower, it really takes off. Very fast car. Good control and safety. I would say that in some ways, this feels like the safest car. It actually moves less than the BMW. It feels, no. And actually, the capacity and weight are also very good. But the driving rating still doesn't get as high as the BMWs because of the steering feedback. Both the BMW and the Mercedes can make a bit of noise when you take off. That actually adds quite a lot to the driving experience. It sounds like you're going fast, and then you believe you're going fast. The seats are really nice in this car too. All three have very nice seats, but I do miss the massage function in the Volvo. It's not possible to add massage as an option. Very, very strange, actually. That's a luxury that, in this price range, at least the massage option should be available. Now we're driving the BMW here and have turned on the engine sound. It adds a bit of drama with this sound, doesn't it? It does add something, doesn't it? I think it's absolutely right that Volvo doesn't have an engine sound because it's not a sporty car. But if you like to drive a bit more spiritedly, then it doesn't have the power you would expect from a BMW. Even stronger versions of this car will be released. But right now, the Volvo is quick in a straight line, not to mention the Merc. Fun car, really fun. It hops and fidgets. The chassis is a stiffer setup just makes the driving experience even greater. I have to say the head-up display that shows the curve is really nice. Round 5 is the wow factor. Maybe in some way the most important feeling, how happy does it make you? How cool do you think the car is? I thought we should, all three of us who have tested these cars, vote. On a 5-point scale, does any of them get a 5? You can start if you want with
the Marsan, with this suspension, the air suspension, it's so obvious that they've made a conscious decision to create the world's most comfortable, bouncy, wonderful car. It's a bit like being out at sea in a good way. I think it's a statement. So I think it's bold and fun. The wow factor in the BMW is definitely more on the techie side. That is, it's a bit innovative. The innovative driver's environment and driver assistance. Now, you buy a BMW because you want to drive it, maybe. But if you don't feel like doing that, then the self-driving function is a wow for me. It's so competent and capable. It actually makes life more comfortable and easier. The wow factor in the Volvo is simply that it's the quietest, smoothest, kindest, most comfortable car.
There were really positive things about all the cars. Yes.
That's a wow.
But now I want, yes, when I step out in the morning and get into the car, which one gives me the best feeling? Wow, I chose the right car. But
I'm an old guy who likes sound comfort, and that's where Volvo wins. Then I also think Volvo wins a bit when it comes to practical solutions.
that's where we completely agree on what the car is good and bad at. It could be a lot of things, but which car gives the most? Wow, when the neighbor comes over and has bought a new car, and you're so proud and happy and think, what a great car I've bought. I feel passion for my car.
They're all wow.
We have to give ratings now.
Okay, in my wow ratings. Then I would give Volvo a 3 in wow rating. It's not wow, it's pretty genderless. It becomes a bit tame and flat.
I would give the Mercedes gets a 4. It's pretty flashy, ostentatious, and cool in many ways. But BMW is the most wow for me. Then it's wow, brutal design, cool. It's cool. So what rating does it get then? A 5 then? Then I'll keep going. I'll give the Mercedes a 5 because it's the craziest and most extroverted. A 4 for this one and a 3 for this one because I have to say it's a better car. Not as much craziness as this one. This one has the most flavor. And Volvo has the least flavor. It only gets a 3 from me in terms of wow factor.
But they're electric cars, Alrik.
I've only seen one breakdown. Yes.
One?
Isn't there any that really makes you go, wow, what an incredible car I have?
No.
If you sat in these cars, would you feel that?
No, it takes something else for that. I mean, if I go down to my Turbo S or my 911, then I feel wow. It's like my whole body wakes up. And the car brings me to life. But if you have a family car?
Then, if you're going to have a family car, you should still feel, I've maximized the wow factor here, a family car for 2 kids and 2 adults, let's say.
You usually need a rating like this.
I want a rating.
Between 1 and 5?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, now I'm going to disconnect my right analytical brain dealer.
Yes, exactly. And use my
Emotional brain. Oh, wow, 5 seconds. 4, 3, and 3.
There it was set. Thank you. Round 6 is economy. Sure, suspension, design, and trunk space are important, but economy stings in a different way. For some people, it doesn't matter that much. Congratulations to you in that case. But maybe you still don't want to contribute too much, even if you can afford it. Here, there are actually significant differences. The base prices are one thing, but I've looked through the equipment lists and selected what I think most people would want. To bring all these 3 electric cars up to roughly the same level, I've added side airbags, better stereo, panoramic glass roof, tow bar, heated rear seats, heated steering wheel, which is not even available in the Mercedes, tinted rear windows, parking assistance with 360 camera, pilot assist, and a few other things. As usual, it's the resale value that determines most things, and unsurprisingly, according to bitpricer.se, Volvo is predicted to have the best resale value. After 3 years, it should be worth 50%, BMW 49%, and Mercedes only 45%. In total, the monthly cost comes to, if you own the car for 3 years, it's 16,000 SEK for a Volvo and a staggering 19,000 SEK for the Mercedes. And the BMW is a bit higher than the Volvo. I'll put up all the numbers here so you can take a look at all of this. And what stands out is that Volvo has managed to lower the insurance cost, the insurance premium. It cost me 435 SEK per month compared to 805 SEK for me to insure a BMW. And in 3 years, when you need full coverage, the BMW will cost me 1,450 SEK. Everything becomes fully insured. I don't understand who will be able to afford these cars when they become used. I mean, 1,500 Swedish kroner a month for insurance. That's insane. Then there's private leasing, and that's when things actually get really interesting. All of a sudden, Volvo becomes the most expensive, since right now they only offer Volvo by care. So you can end your private lease after 6 months. They probably feel there's no need to offer a regular private lease because the demand is so incredibly high. They have this luxury private leasing option. Aren't you planning to buy and own the cars for a long time? Then private leasing one of the German cars is an option. But most people probably have these cars as company cars. Then there won't be such big differences. The benefit value for a Volvo is a total of 8,650. BMW is 8,600 and Mercedes is 9,550. I think you can make that difference based on which car you want. Do you like your company car so much that you wouldn't want to buy it out? Are you worried about tax risks, benefit taxation, complications? Ex-co-car, ex-company car takes care of everything. Completely digital and includes at least 1 year of full warranty. Go to excocar.se and read more. But the finance round actually turned out tighter than I expected. Overall, BMW and Volvo ended up with the same score. But which car is the overall winner for you? On points, the BMW wins. But I think that all these companies, the three companies that built these cars, are winners because they have created such fantastic, beautiful cars that truly deliver what their brands promise. A sporty, high-tech BMW, an extra luxurious Mercedes, or a very sensible and super practical Volvo. After much anxiety and consideration, I have come to my winner, and it is actually the BMW. The longer range, which you get without the car becoming more expensive. And the fantastic driving assistance and high-tech features, that makes the difference for me. The Volvo is more comfortable to ride in, and the Mercedes is without a doubt the most extroverted and entertaining. But if you have to choose, which one would you choose? I hope you enjoyed this test. Feel free to subscribe to the channel and become a member to support me. See you, take care.